Hello and welcome to Lansing Pulse. I'm Ken Miller, joined as always by City Administrator Tim Vandal. And we're going to do something a little bit different today. The biggest issue in Lansing over the next month and a half is going to be the public vote in November about whether to raise the sales tax for a city pool, essentially. I think we're going to focus solely on that today in the video. So let's start with the city's position on this ballot issue. And it's really the fact that we can't have a position on this.
That's exactly right. We need to be neutral on this. Since we're putting it out to the voters, we can educate people, we can answer questions, we can talk pros and we can talk cons, but we really can't be advocating for it. I know, over the next couple of weeks we'll be putting out mailers, we'll be doing public forums, and the goal is to let people know everything that's going on and to lay out the facts before them. And I know, being open about all of those things. I mean, there have been people that have told me they think this is a terrible idea, and there have been people who tell me this is a great idea. And we get it. It's a challenging time to be asking people to pay a little bit more in sales tax, but at the same time, it's something that the council has received a lot of feedback about. So again, I think that's the council's mindset, is we put this out to the voters and let the voters decide.
That's a great point because, I think it would have been a much harder sell if you would have said we're going to try and fund this through raising property taxes, which means only Lansing residents or Lansing property owners would pay for it. I think you spoke to the county commission here recently, and one of the things that they brought up was, hey, sales tax, that's the right way to do it.
Yeah, and quite honestly too, I think that's one of the misconceptions maybe that's out there a little bit. And so I know we are trying to emphasize that to people. If this passes, it would increase Lansing sales tax rate from 8.95% to 9.4%. So even if it passes, it'd be slightly less than Leavenworth's sales tax rate, but it would be greater than the Tonganoxie and Basehor sales tax rate. But again, that's part of the education effort that myself and the council is trying to do. Just let people know what we're asking of them, let them know that they can vote for this November or they can vote against it, and to just answer all the questions and be open and upfront about this as much as we can be.
Okay, so the particulars, so we're going to get a little bit into concepts here because nothing is set in stone. Obviously, it has to pass on November 8th to even move forward. But as far as the particulars go, I know you've seen a lot of the designs. You've got poster boards with designs on it. We're going to tell you about a website here shortly that you can go to see this more graphically. But what are some of the highlights in the concepts that you've seen?
Yeah, well, first off, you hit the nail on the head. Plans are conceptual right now, so nothing is in stone yet. But a lot of the features that I'm going to mention are features that the council brought up, that residents had mentioned to them that they thought would be appealing in an aquatic center. So to start off, there's an area that's probably geared for younger kids. So it's a zero depth entry, a smaller family slide type thing. There's two more standard water slides. One is a speed slide and one is those slides that does the little twists and turns and everything like that. There would be a climbing wall, volleyball net, basketball hoop, all of those things. There's 6 lap lanes in the conceptual design, and that's something. Lansing just has a spectacular club swim team, and our council was saying, hey, if this is something that we can do to help promote that club swim team and promote that in Lansing, let's do it by all means. One of the other things that we've been getting a lot of comments and questions about when we show people the conceptual design is there is a lazy river in there. And I believe that was appealing to the city council because there's not a lot of other municipal aquatic facilities that have that nearby. So we felt like that would make us unique and it would fill a little bit of a niche. But getting back to the fact that this is conceptual though, if this passes in November, formal design would take place. And at that point, when we get a better estimate on final costs and things like that, maybe at that point we can say, hey, maybe instead of 6 lap lanes, we do 4. Maybe instead of 1 water slide, we do 2. Whatever the case may be. But as the design progresses, we'll be able to kind of refine the design a little bit more.
Well, and I've heard you speak about this, and we've spoke about this before. We're going to move into the cost or the potential cost of this project. you have brought up, and I know our finance director has brought up, there's a lot of variability here playing out that we just can't put a finger on quite yet. Inflation, availability of product to build an aquatic center.
Yeah.
So talk a little bit about how that's kind of, it's kind of a moving target.
It really is, and it's been a challenge because a couple of times when I've spoken to citizen groups about this, some people are really excited, and so they want to know definitively what the details of it are going to be. And like we were just talking about, we have that conceptual design, but I can't tell a person for certain 6 lanes, 4 lanes, or whatever. It's hard to pin that down at this stage quite yet.
And we wouldn't have wanted to get to that level of specificity with design and then have the vote fail. Then we would have wasted a lot of money.
Exactly.
Right.
But getting back to what you were saying earlier, and we want to hear what citizens think about this. We want to hear what features are important to them and things like that. So yeah, by all means, on the city's website there is a button that talks about our pool webpage, and I think you shared it on the city webpage as well. But this pool webpage, it lets people kind of chime in on what features are important to them and things like that. And there's a lot of really neat 3D images and QR codes where you can look and see what the pool would look like as if you were standing there. So that website has really been fantastic for our residents to check out. The consultant that we're working with, I want to say he was telling me within the first 24 hours we had over 100 responses.
Right. The survey, right?
Yeah, the survey. So it's been fantastic to hear that. But again, if people are passionate about whether it's water slides, lap swim, lazy river, whatever, fill out that survey and let us know, because we want to hear from our citizens.
Right. So on the flip side, obviously this all sounds good, whatever concept you might be excited about, but there's a cost to that. So you're looking at a sales tax rate increase. How much money would that raise annually, potentially? And how much money would it cost to just build the aquatic center?
So our rough estimates have it between $8 and $9 million. So I mean, that's not insignificant. That is a large chunk of money for a city like Lansing. So the sales tax rate that's being proposed is 0.45%. So again, that would increase Lansing's sales tax rate from 8.95 to 9.4. We think that would generate at least $600,000 a year to go directly for construction of this aquatic center. And we would likely finance it through a 20-year bond.
Right.
And so that $600,000 a year would pay the debt service on that. The thing that gives us pause, that anyone who follows the news right now can understand, is interest rates are just climbing pretty significantly. And in a situation like this, even a 0.75% increase in the interest rate on an $8 or $9 million project, that's hundreds of thousands of dollars. So again, there's just so many balls in the air right now, and until the vote is completed and the design is completed, we'll give people the best information that we have, but there's some things that we just can't pin down quite yet. But yeah, obviously, it will be a little bit more cost for our residents. So I want to say, when we were looking at what 0.45% does, say you're at Aldi and you buy $200 worth of groceries, that'd be an extra 90 cents. It really adds up if you're purchasing, a new car or something like that, or if you're purchasing something that's, pretty expensive at Tractor Supply or Harbor Freight. But I think for the most part, if you're swinging through Freddy's on your lunch break, you probably wouldn't notice it. But again, on some of those larger scale purchases, a person might notice it.
Right. Now, everything you just mentioned points to the construction of this facility. But if it passes and we start moving forward, there are additional costs, not the least of which is going to be staffing it.
Yeah. So we're anticipating the annual costs to be between $100,000 and $120,000 per year. And yeah, a big chunk of that is staffing, utilities, chemicals, things like that.
Maintenance type
type things, exactly. And, again, on the topic of being neutral and giving our residents all of the information that they need to make an informed decision, I think most aquatic facilities, municipal aquatic facilities, do not make money.
Right.
And our consultant, I believe, was telling us, you'll probably make 75% of your revenue back. So in that scenario, if we're spending $100,000 on expenses, we might make $75,000 back in revenue,
Right.
which means it's $25,000 in the red per year.
Right.
So those are things that the city and the city council will need to think about a little bit in terms of, well, how do we fund that extra little bit. Not that $25,000 per year is insignificant, but when you think about the amount of money that is transferred into our Parks and Recreation Fund per year, $25,000 you could make that up somewhere else potentially.
Right.
But you're right, it would be in the red per year, as most municipal aquatic facilities are. And there are expenses to deal with
Right.
that we're trying to work through right now.
Right. So, and one thing we should also mention is whether you're a resident or non-resident wanting to use the pool, it's very likely that families are going to have to buy either day passes or seasonal passes as another way to offset some of those maintenance costs and those staff costs.
Yeah. I was just talking to a citizen group the other day, and this topic came up quite a bit, is how much will your season passes be, how much will your daily fees be? And, it's tough because, again, I can't give
Right.
people a firm answer quite yet, but I can tell you at similar aquatic centers to what we're building, I would bet the daily admission fee would be at least $5 per person.
Yeah.
Per person.
Okay.
And I would bet season passes would be between $150 and $200 per year. But again,
Per person?
well, and I think
and maybe there's
and
by family
there's
deals in
probably
there.
family
Yeah.
rates and
Right,
things
right,
like
right,
that.
right.
But I guess the point is, and I know one of our council members has told me to really emphasize this, that sales tax just builds it. Every year there's going to be annual costs for fees, maintenance, things like that, and that's something to keep in mind.
Right.
That sales tax just builds it. People are still going to have to pay to use it. So yeah, there's going to be expenses involved. The other thing I'm not sure I had mentioned earlier, the location of this.
Right.
We're looking at doing this on West Mary and Bittersweet, so directly west of Lansing Elementary School.
Very central location.
Exactly,
Yeah.
and I think it was appealing to the city council because there's sidewalks on both sides of that road. It's really close to Angel Falls Trail. It's a very visible location, and I know our consultant was saying with aquatic centers, it's nice if you're able to say, hey, it's right by this. And in our case, we'd be able to say, hey, it's just west of Lansing Elementary School. So we're hoping it's a walkable or bikeable location for kids and families. If the parking lot is completely full, it's close to an elementary school in the summer.
Overflow parking.
Overflow parking is something that might be an option if we talk to the elementary school a little bit. But there's a lot of exciting stuff that's going into this that we're just incredibly thrilled about. Once we see what happens on November 8th, we'll kind of have our marching orders.
Right. All right, so we'll wrap it up. Again, assuming it passes on November 8th, let's talk a little bit about what you know to this point about a time frame, not only for design and construction, but when that darn thing would be open so people could get in it and swim.
Yeah. So if it passes in November, we would get the ball rolling on a more firm engineering design phase.
With more public input.
With more public
Right,
input.
right.
And we think that would take about 6 months. So that would get us to May. And so if we're at May of 2023 and we're able to put that out to bid, that means you could have 12 or 13 months of construction if we want to be open by the summer of 2024. That said, there's so many variables, like you had alluded to earlier, with supply chain issues. So, we would certainly want to be open in the summer of 2024, but that's a very ambitious timeline.
Right.
That's an incredibly ambitious timeline. So it's also possible it might be 2025, but the goal would certainly be to be open by the summer of 2024.
Okay, I've been speaking with City Administrator Tim Vandal. For Lansing Pulse, I'm Ken Miller.